What is up, everyone? Movie Wayne back again with another episode of Review Roundup. This is just me going through a few movies released this year that weren't too much on my radar or just dropped on streaming services there. And this doesn't mean that they are bad movies, because I actually done a cinema release on this in the last episode, and that was The Last Duel, and that is in my top 10 movies of the year. So, like I said, the movies I weren't really anticipating or anything, but I want to talk about them anyway, because I want to review every film that I watched this year on the channel. It's a little goal I've set myself. Now, these are shorter reviews than usual. They might be 2 or 3 minutes long compared to the longer reviews that I do for other movies. So let's just get into it with the first film, and that is Red Notice, that dropped on Netflix. So here we have The Rock, Ryan Reynolds and Gal Gadot all in one movie. What could go wrong? Well, actually, mainly because of those three, this was a pretty fun movie, which sees The Rock trying to catch Ryan Reynolds' character, who is one of the world's greatest art thieves, and then they have to team up to catch Gal Gadot's character, who is in fact the world's greatest art thief. It's an actual joy here to see The Rock and Ryan Reynolds team up as a double act who bounce off each other really well, with plenty of insults and trust issues along the way. The movie actually shines most when all three are on screen together, but Reynolds is by far the standout as this absolutely lovable smartass. I mean, that's probably his best fiat as an actor right now, and this movie takes full advantage of that. It's just a fun dynamic to see these three at work, trying to better each other constantly and be the best they can be at what they do. The whole movie does just ask you to have fun with it, and I think this can be achieved if you just leave your brain at the door before you go into this. There are some outrageously far-fetched scenarios. One moment, these two characters are in a helicopter and an enemy shoots a rocket at it from a rocket launcher, and you just think, how are they going to get out of this? And next minute, someone spins the helicopter around so the rocket flies through one door and out of the other. It's that type of film. Now, there's also a ton of green screen here, and at times it can really take you out the film. I mean, it's more noticeable here than a hell of a lot of other modern movies. I mean, you can see it a mile off. Some questionable dialogue also plays a part in Red Notice, but not more so than at the end of the film, when our characters go on these strange little monologues of what situations and plans they had up their sleeve all along. I mean, they may have just read the script in front of the camera. The over-explaining feels ridiculous. And I'm just thinking, why do movies always do this when things get revealed? I mean, a sentence will do to make us figure it out. We don't need a 3-minute speech. I mean, it's not just the end of the script where this happens. It happens quite a lot throughout the entire runtime. There's also some lazy writing here, I feel. For example, The Rock is in a museum full of people, and he wants to show everyone that this Anticon show is a fake. And he decides to pour a can of Coke over it, which will melt the fake antique, and it just happens to be standing next to a boy who, yeah, you guessed it, has a can of Coke in his hand. All these problems come together to make it feel exactly like what it is, a generic Netflix movie, which we have had more often than not now, haven't we? Like I said though, despite these flaws, this movie is kind of fun and one of the easiest watches I've had all year. It even dares to mention a sequel, which I'm not gonna lie, I'd probably watch. Oh yeah, The Rock is in the jungle at one point in this film. Standard behaviour from him now, isn't it? I'm going to go ahead and give Red Notice a 6 out of 10. Despite the problems, I had a good time. Moving on to a better Netflix movie now, The Harder They Fall, which tells the story of a man with the help of his gang seeking revenge on a ruthless criminal who also has a gang, all taking place in the Wild West. Now, what I noticed straight away was the Tarantino-esque scenes that pop onto the screen now and then throughout this film. And what do Tarantino-esque scenes mean? Simply put, this movie is cool as fuck. And what do Tarantino-esque movies have? Kick-ass soundtracks, which is also implanted here, thankfully. I don't mean to compare too much to the Quentin, but there are quite a few resemblances here. Added to this is the incredibly witty and awesome dialogue. I just love some of the lines these characters in this movie were spewing out, and it all just seemed to have an impressive rhythm going for it, with all the characters living and breathing the exact same tone. And most of these characters are great. There's some actually really funny personnel in there, and also some really gritty and no-nonsense ones too, from each of the gangs, R.G. Cycler and Lakeith Stanfield being the two standouts in those categories respectively. The Harder They Fall also has such a pristine visual look to it. I mean, this just looked like one of those 4K Blu-rays you pick up, and I'm instantly blown away by the picture quality. But the film is so colourful and rich looking, the towns just stand out so nicely, and the vast wastelands look amazing. There's one scene too where our main characters go to a town where only white people live and all the houses are painted white. It didn't half stick out in the movie, and that just added to the quirky theme of the film. The film also contains all the traits Westerns should have. Whiskey shots being slammed on bars, duels happening, gunfights between two gangs. And as a side note here, I'm not going to lie, I think I prefer modern Westerns compared to the classics. That's just me. But there are also some awesome scenes in this movie. One of them involves this gang trying to break Idris Elba's character out of a train, and I thought every single second of it was just plain awesome. However, I do think as much as Idris Elba is an amazing actor, that he was kind of miscast here. He plays this real hard-ass villain who shows no empathy for anyone, and the movie does its best to let you know how much of a vile and nasty human being he is. But I just couldn't get on board with it because it's Idris Elba. He just unfortunately didn't seem to be able to adjust to this role for me. And it kind of took me out the film a bit because I couldn't take him seriously. Every time he stared someone in the eye or threatened to kill a man, I was just waiting for the other character to laugh or something. I didn't feel it was true to the villain that this movie wanted. And unfortunately, the main character of this film, Nat Love, played by Jonathan Majors, was another negative for the movie. He's not an unlikable character or anything, but he puts this dumb, over-the-top accent on, and I honestly had trouble hearing what he was trying to say in almost every other sentence. You would think the director, James Samuel, would pull him to one side and say, I'm not too sure on this, is not feeling right, can you change it a little bit? And it became a kind of a chore in the end to listen to, unfortunately. This was still a great movie though, despite the protagonist and the antagonist not living up to having as much fun on screen with the other characters and being the two weak points of the movie for me personally. The Harder They Fall was one of the better Netflix films I've seen in a long time. I'm going to give this a 7.5 out of 10. Next up we have The Nighthouse, and this was such a thought-provoking thriller / horror which sees Jennifer Hall try to deal with her life after her husband's death at the lakeside house she resides in. First off, Jennifer Hall puts in such a great performance here. This is a woman in a terrible moment in her life, dealing with loss, and you truly do believe every emotion she puts across on screen. You can see it etched into her face throughout the entire runtime, and it's always on the forefront of her lips when engaging in conversation with other characters. Like she can't hold it in and she needs to talk about her dead husband and nothing else, as she seeks advice on how to deal with her situation. Desperation and cries for help just ooze off her persona, and I thought she really did a fantastic performance here and truly understood what was asked of her. The Nighthouse also has a total sense of mystery going for it, along with a very creepy vibe that teases the viewer into what actually happened with Jennifer Hall's boyfriend here, the events leading up to it, what's going on in the present, and it just keeps you guessing all the way. There are some pretty tension-filled moments here too, with haunting scenes to make the movie quite an eerie one. However, I do feel like it starts to rely on jump scares, which is a bit of a shame. It's not too often, thankfully, and some of them do come off, but it's more in the latter half of the movie, and you kind of just get used to it in the end. I really thought after a pretty good run, The Nighthouse does fall a little flat in its final 20 minutes too, unfortunately. I thought the concept behind this was great. I just wish it was executed a little bit better, as you feel a little short-changed at the end. I'm going to give The Nighthouse a 7 out of 10. Next up we have Paranormal Activity, Next of Kin, the 7th movie in this franchise. Now this is a series of films where I always say to myself going in, this is going to be the one where it just goes a little bit too far and I'm not going to enjoy it, because how many times can you do this? But no, I mean, I actually thought this was going to happen at the second one as well, just banking on the first movie there being a cash-in. But no, actually I really enjoyed all of these films, and even the last one, The Ghost Dimension, it was the weakest one, but it kind of surprised me a little bit there. Until now. Yes, unlucky number 7, unfortunately. This tells the story of a young girl who takes a camera crew with her to document the whereabouts of her long-lost Amish family in a secluded and snowy cabin. I feel like it finally hit me that I may be tired of this formula. I do like found footage movies, but Paranormal Activity Next of Kin just seemed to rinse and repeat everything they have done constantly throughout the franchise. This was easily the least interesting story too. I didn't care for our characters, the Amish family members, or the location. In fact, the location felt like it was trying too hard to be creepy. I mean, you look at something like the marked ones, it's a common apartment building, or most of the other films are in a modern type house, and that's what makes this franchise that it's a little bit more realistic when we're there. And I think here, I just wasn't feeling it at all. It was just trying too hard. The jump scares they went for too here just felt really old, and by the time they happened, I just didn't really care. One thing they did add in here though was these slow-mo trick shots on the camera, and it slows everything down for the viewer. I thought this one-time gimmick worked well, but when it happens again and again, it just feels forced and takes the realism that these movies go for away a little. Like, who has time to do slow-mo shots in dangerous situations? I'm gonna give Paranormal Activity Next of Kin a 4.5 out of 10. Next up, we have Batman The Long Halloween. Now, I'm just going to review part 1 and 2 together here. I know this has been out a while on Blu-ray, but like I said at the start of the video, I want to review every 2021 movie that I've seen this year. Better late than never. Now, I bought these two just before Halloween, and the title tells the exact truth, but is also very misleading as well. This is not Batman based on the holiday of Halloween. It's based around every holiday. But it just starts on Halloween and then comes full circle, as there is a killer on the loose who commits murder on every holiday occasion, and it's up to Batman and Jim Gordon to get to the bottom of it. Kind of cool concept, to be honest. Now, I loved the total sense of mystery here, because when you watch these two together, it feels like a 3-hour epic, and I was guessing throughout. And no, I never guessed the outcome. Lots of fan favourite villains show up here too, and most of them are nicely integrated into the setup, but I gotta admit, there are a few that do feel shoehorned in. I enjoy these animated Batman movies for what they are though, and The Long Halloween is no exception, even if it is one of the weakest ones I have seen. The voice acting is always spot on, especially from Jensen Ackles and Troy Baker. When their voices are on screen together, it's perfection. The animation is pretty nice too. I mean, they could definitely do better, but it gets the job done. I don't dislike it or anything, and it seems they are trying to stay true to the animated series in a way. As a Batman fan, this was pleasing enough to me, and I had a good time. Part 2 for me is the better version, but honestly, there isn't much in it. I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10 for both movies. Okay guys, I hope you all enjoyed this episode of Review Roundup. If you want to see all my 2021 movie reviews, they will be in the playlist down below, along with a couple of episodes like this. I do have a full review of Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City coming, along with another episode of Review Roundup in the works. I've already got 2 movies in that one. So, hope you all enjoyed this video. What do you think of these movies? Leave a comment down below. I will reply to every single one of you, I promise. Take it all easy, guys. I'll see you all next video.